Over the last few years, there's been a lot of controversy and debate whether Uber and Lyft drivers are independent contractors or if they are employees. There's also one expert who is weighing in on their option on what Uber and Lyft drivers really are, whether they are independent contractors or employees. And that's what I'm going to be talking about right now. Hey everyone, Chris here from Real Rideshare Stories. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for different things within the rideshare industry, whether it's updates to what's going on, news, tips and tricks for passengers and drivers, or what actually happens on real rideshare rides, start now by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Also make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. So over the past few years, there has been a lot of debate and a lot of controversy surrounding this very topic on whether drivers for Uber and Lyft are truly independent contractors or have they been misclassified and should be really classified as employees. Now, Uber and Lyft has started by saying they are independent contractors and drivers are not employees. And they have stuck with that for a long time since its inception. And this is pretty much the only way they can conduct business. In fact, even in their IPOs, they actually said if drivers were employees, it would radically change and shift their entire core business because it would cost a lot more money to them. Now, drivers are having the other end of the stick where they're trying to figure out, are we really drivers who are independent contractors where we can make our own decisions and make our own things and kind of do what we want? Or are we really doing the work that Uber and Lyft are telling us to do in a discreet way? So there's a lot of controversy and a lot of debate around it. There is also states stepping in, whether it's California with AB 5 signing that into law on January 1st of this year, as well as now the Attorney General of California, which is suing both Uber and Lyft for the reclassification of drivers, or at least to make them go against the ABC test in a court of law and see if drivers are truly independent contractors or if they are really employees. Now, there is also an article that I just came across recently, and this is talking about Uber and Lyft drivers, if they are truly independent contractors or if they are employees, and this is from an employment expert. So I think this is actually a pretty good spot to go into because we have heard from Uber and Lyft, we have heard from some drivers, we have heard from the states, and now let's hear from an employment expert as well, kind of weighing in on the options. So this is an article on Yahoo Finance. A link will be in the description below if you'd like to read it. It is titled, Uber Lyft Essentially Ignore U.S. Labor Laws, Employment Expert Says. So right here, it starts going in and says the coronavirus pandemic has shone a spotlight on the service workers who stock grocery shelves, prepare coffee, and deliver food. But society's reliance on their work hasn't translated into protections or benefits for the workers themselves. Many of these essential employees who work for the behemoths like Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, DoorDash, Instacart, Postmates are all part of the so-called gig economy. And the trouble with these companies is that they choose to misclassify workers. By doing so, they essentially ignore U.S. labor laws. In other words, if you're a worker and you work for an Uber or Instacart or Postmates, you do not get benefits associated with work. In other words, the minimum wage doesn't apply to you, overtime doesn't apply to you, you don't get unemployment insurance, and you don't get workers' comp. You also don't get expenses. That's one of the big things that you would be getting if you were an employee versus an independent contractor. All of those things as an independent contractor should be paid enough to be able to take care of that yourself. So that means that you would be able to pay for your health care, you'd be able to pay for time off if you wanted to take a vacation, you'd be able to set money aside, no problem. You'd be able to pay for your expenses, and you'd have all of that money coming in where it was good. And a few years ago, when you were driving for Uber and Lyft, you were making some pretty decent money. But over the years, they have slowly rolled back how much drivers are making. And unfortunately, that means people are making less. And sometimes people are making well under minimum wage when it comes down to it, depending on the market, depending on when you're out, and a lot of factors behind it. But yes, there are still people out there who are able to make 20, 30, 40, sometimes even $50 an hour, or at least on an hourly rate, but not always something that you can rely on. Most people are between 15 and 22 an hour or something. So yeah, you can make some money. And again, this is all before expenses when it comes down to it. You still have to factor in all these expenses like gas, wear and tear on your car, and the maintenance that has to go into your car. Different things like eating and food and drinks that you may have to use while out on the road, or get while out on the road. Then there's other things involved like healthcare, insurance, a lot of different factors that you may not be factoring in when you're computing what you made for that hour on the last hour you worked. So there's a lot of issues and gray area when it comes to this whole topic. Aquin is a staffing company that matches 10,000 temporary employees with large companies every year, primarily in creative and marketing industries. Sort of the worker norms that we held for granted for literally 100 years have been sort of ignored by these companies. And these companies are getting a lot of flack for it and a lot of dissatisfaction. And again, that's exactly what you're seeing from drivers right now. When they roll back how much drivers are making from what they used to make to what they're making now, and rolling that back and taking things further away, like different bonuses, the surge structure, and things like that, then you're going to have several people who are dissatisfied because they were working more or for more before, and now they're working for less. And it should actually be kind of the other way around, where you start off maybe a little bit lower and then you start gaining higher and get more over time as raises and things come, like the cost of living expense raised as well. With this pandemic, it's especially important because none of these workers get sick pay. Of course, if they don't get sick pay, then there's an economic incentive to go to work even though you're not feeling well, and it becomes a health issue. And that we have seen. We've seen many drivers who have been featured in different articles, if you've read any of them or gone on Facebook pages or anything like that, where there's still people who are out driving, whether they feel sick or not. And they say, hey, I can't take time off. I have to continue driving. Even if I have this cough, I'll just put it off and hopefully that I get better, instead of taking the time off to actually lay around, get better, and then get back at it a little bit later. So gig workers have been able to file for unemployment for the first time ever because of this pandemic's devastating effects, but it's hardly panacea for deep cracks in the system. Yeah, I said that one wrong. Citing companies like Starbucks, McDonald's, and Walmart that have provided a one-off bonus and temporary pay increase during the pandemic, Chuang said the companies like Uber and Lyft had no excuse not to take care of their employees. Now, again, this is somebody who is weighing in, saying that drivers are employees. And then a third tier of workers. So meanwhile, the state of California signed AB 5 into law earlier this year, mandating companies in the gig economy to reclassify their workers as employees. Now California's Attorney General and the city attorneys of Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco have sued Uber and Lyft for defying the law. The ride-hailing startups have pledged $60 million to push a ballot initiative that would create a third category worker classification, essentially making them exempt from AB 5. Now, again, this is $60 million because it's $30 million between Uber and Lyft, but there's other companies that have also donated upwards of about $40 million. So there's about $100 million total in this different initiative because these companies do not want its drivers as employees, and they understand why. So the California ballot initiative we support would allow companies to pay into specific benefits while protecting independent, flexible work. We recently delivered the signatures needed to qualify the ballot initiative, and it's progressing well, Lyft CEO Logan Green said during its first quarter conference call on May 6th. As we track public opinion around the proposal, we are finding significant and growing support. This is an excellent opportunity for us to establish a new model that both addresses this need for flexibility along with important benefits. This is almost outrageous sometimes when you think about it. First of all, California passed a law specifically to say, hey, gig economy companies, you have to follow the law. You have to do things that every other employee in the state does, like pay labor taxes and pay payroll taxes. And even after the law is passed, they refuse to do it, said Chuang. What Uber and Lyft are trying to do by creating this third tier, this special set of rules that just apply to them, is utterly ridiculous and unfair, he added. Of course, Uber and Lyft pouring money into fighting AB5 is about cost savings. Barclays estimates that classifying California drivers as employees, and this is just for the state of California, could cost Uber $500 million and Lyft $290 million annually. So right there, again, that's just talking about the state of California. That is not talking about other states that could follow suit, like New York State, because they do have something in the House and in the Senate when it comes to the government and an AB5-like law. New Jersey has also sued or gave them a tax bill, not necessarily suing them, but a tax bill to Uber for $650 million. So these are huge amounts of money that may have to be paid to the states and maybe to drivers and how they are classified. So as you can see, there is a lot of debate and there is a lot of controversy surrounding this particular issue. So you have Uber and Lyft saying independent contractors or even create a third tier, but do not place them as employees. Whatever you do, please don't, because that will reshape our entire business model. And so they're trying to do everything they can not to do that. Then you have the lawmakers on the other side saying, if you aren't going to follow the law, we're going to create the law for an ABC test and then codify it, and we're going to take you to court like California has done. Then you have experts weighing in, and in the whole midst of this, you have the pawns, which are all the drivers. And the drivers are trying to make sense of everything, whether it's true if they're independent contractors or not when it comes to employees. So you have some drivers who are saying, no, we need the protections, we need this and that and the other things that come with employee status. And then you have the other people who are saying, no, this is what it is. You're an independent contractor. This is what you signed up for. Well, yeah, you may have signed up for it, but that may not necessarily be the truth. So it's going to be a very interesting time. And there's also going to be a lot more debate coming from this particular topic, whether drivers are independent contractors or if they should be classified as employees. Now, I know in the comment section, I am going to get a lot from both sides of the fence. Now, tell me what your thoughts are on this. I know I brought it up in previous videos on whether it's independent contractor or employee. But again, this is just another person who is looking at it from the standpoint of being an expert in the field that they're in and how they're weighing the options. So comment below, let me know your thoughts. Do you think that drivers are truly independent contractors, or do you think that they're exploited as independent contractors and they could do more to create an independent contractor for its drivers? Or do you think that they have been misclassified and should be reclassified as employees? Or do you like this third wheel option? Comment below and let me know. Now, my thoughts and opinions on this matter has been an evolving process from when I first started to what's going on now with the new information that is being shown, coming to light, and also there's still more information that needs to come out. And once all that comes out, then I can truly make an informed decision on what I think drivers are classified as or should be changed. And so when I first started a few years ago, it was before upfront pricing even began. So it was during the 80-20 split. And that was great. I was out there, I was making a lot of money. I was doing really well. It was fun. I enjoyed it. You didn't have the problems that you had today. You didn't have the false report issues as widespread as it is today. You didn't have those problems like we do today. You also didn't have the upfront pricing, which once that came into play, then it went to mileage and time for how drivers got paid. And you saw that pay decrease and decrease and decrease over time. while this whole time is happening, you see Uber and Lyft strong-arming its drivers into doing what it wants, whether it was spoken or unspoken, by putting in certain things like this whole Uber Pro and all of things behind that. So they put things in place to make it seem like drivers can make the decision, but yet in actuality, they really don't. Same thing with acceptance rate and cancellation rate. Now, then you couple that with all the changes that have happened from AB5 and what Uber has done. So you can see like the pickup location, the drop-off location, you know the time that it's going to take to get to that for that ride. You know about how much you're going to make. There's no more acceptance rate. There's a lot of changes that California drivers have had because Uber does not want them to be independent, or I'm sorry, they do not want drivers to be employees. They want to continue being independent contractors because it's in the company's best interest. And then you have the lawmakers coming out, and you have California not only making AB5 and codifying it into law, but you also have the Attorney General putting forth its case in a 27-page document or whatever, however long it is, explaining the ABC and how Uber and Lyft do not actually comply with it, and therefore the drivers are truly employees. But because, like I said a minute ago, I can't make that informed decision whether that is true or not because I haven't seen anything about this third tier system. So if it's a third tier, I want to see what it's going to look like before I can make my decision. But I can tell you one thing, I do not think drivers, as of right now, are currently independent contractors. I think it's been an exploitation, and they have started off as independent contractors, and they have started off that way. But then slowly over time, as things evolved and changed within the companies, they drew things back further and further and further while strengthening their control over drivers. And now I think they're exploited. But again, until new information comes around, then I have to stick with that decision. So it has evolved over time and will continue to evolve until I have all of the information. You may agree with me, you may disagree with me. That's cool and that's okay. It's your thoughts, it's your ideas. Just put some time in it. And then lastly, what will I support? Will I support drivers staying independent contractors, or will I support something like AB5 and reclassifying them as employees? Like I said, I need to see that third option. I need to see what it's going to look like before I can say what I think. But overall, whatever I want to see is going to benefit the most drivers because this is about the drivers. Don't make it about collecting taxes if you're the state of California. Don't make it about profit for your company if you're Uber and Lyft. Make it for the people who are actually doing the work out there. And not one decision is going to benefit all drivers, but whoever is benefited most from one of those three options, I think will be the best course of action. Until I can have all the information for all three categories, then I can't make my decision until then. And if you want to share your thoughts and opinions, I gladly ask you to write in the comments. And like I said, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me, that's cool and that's your decision. Now that's the end of this video. I could go on and I could debate this, and maybe I will do a live stream. Maybe we'll do a call-in live stream or something about this particular issue. And maybe we'll probably have several down the road because this is a major issue on how it's going to affect not only how Uber and Lyft operate, not only how the state is going to view what's going on, but also ultimately it's really going to classify all of us and what it's going to mean for all of us drivers. So again, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for notifications for any video that I do upload, whether it's on this topic or just anything that I usually put out in the normal content. Also, make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. And as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, your delivery drivers, and your shoppers. And we'll see you next time.